midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, it's nothing. It's not out of the ordinary to hear Abby up in her room beating the piano around or playing the cello and just singing to the top of her lungs. And sometimes she'll wake us up, and I'll have to go up and tell her, Abby, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You do have to get up in a few hours because you get a rest. But we never want to discourage them from practicing. We just try to encourage them to do it during business hours. If you know what I mean. But I thank the Lord that they have that desire at this early age, at this young age. It used to be somewhat uncommon, but it's becoming more common that you see more and more young people giving their life to Christ and serving God in different ways. And music is just one of the ways that our teenagers have chosen to worship the Lord and share their testimony. And it certainly is insightful, and it certainly is gracious and generous of them to give their time to share that with you tonight. So I trust that you appreciate that, and that you thank the Lord for their commitment that they've made. Before we get started tonight, I got to ask, does anybody have a testimony? Something, has God been good to you?
I want to thank God. I want to say, I want to thank God. When I get ready to go, I'm just going to call me home for everything. I'm moving. I'm 66 now, but I'm still kicking.
Amen. Amen. God gives us breath every day. God gives us life. Sometimes we take that for granted. We just think it's going to be here. It's not. Anybody else have a word for the Lord? Anything God's done for you? Or praise, anything?
I want to say thank you, praise Him for saving my soul, and for His guidance and direction, and just pray that He'll continue to give me clarity and what I need to be doing.
Amen. We're studying Wednesday night on that, Brother Darrell. We're studying on wisdom, and I know you've been here. We're going through the book of Proverbs chapter by chapter, and there are a lot of deep things in that chapter, and a lot of things that are beyond my comprehending, and that's why we have good commentaries, we have good friends, and good resources that we can call on to get clarification. I love that book. I love studying that book. It's a wonderful book. Anybody else before we jump in? Yes, Margie.
I had to make a quick trip to Frederick this morning. I left at 6:30 to get back in time for church tonight. On the way back, I stopped in Berkeley Springs to see my brother. As Pastor Steve would know, 6 years ago, my brother had a very serious aneurysm surgery where he literally almost died, and the doctors even said, something is bigger and better for you. Today I asked him, I said, Paul, we were talking about the 6-year anniversary, and I said, Paul, did you ever find what you were looking for, and what God has for you? And I said, did you ever come to that decision? And do you remember last week I told you I had one brother that's about 12 inches from being saved?
Yes.
He told me today he got saved.
Amen.
So thank God for that, and that I only have one brother left not to be saved.
Amen. Keep working. Keep praying. God will honor those prayers. I truly believe that. Anybody else tonight? It's been a good day. We had a good service this morning, and God did some business this morning. And as we preached this morning, we're nothing without the grace of God. We wouldn't be where we're at if it wasn't for the grace of God. Well, tonight, those of you that know me well know that I love the book of Psalms. Yesterday, during our men's fellowship, I had the privilege of bringing the devotion, and I brought a devotion from the book of Psalms, and I don't know, to me there's just something special about this book, about this chapter of Psalms. And when I need encouragement, when I need just a word from the Lord, I know that I can always find it in the book of Psalms somewhere. And tonight, I just want to share briefly with you a thought that God put on my mind a couple of weeks ago as I was reading in my morning devotions. And every time, you've heard me say this, every time that I'm reading the Psalms, that there's always one that speaks to me. There's always one that stands out more to me than another. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I needed it that day and I didn't need it the day before. But this particular Psalms, chapter 101, Psalms 101. Something that, like I said, that the Lord just showed me, something that the Lord reminded me of. And I want to share that thought with you tonight, just for the next few minutes. Psalms 101, we'll read the entire chapter, and then we'll come back and make a few comments on this chapter tonight. David, here under the inspiration of the Holy Ghost of God, is writing, and he's saying, I will sing of the mercy and judgment. Unto thee, O Lord, will I sing. I will behave myself wisely in a perfect way. O when wilt thou come unto me? I will walk within my house with a perfect heart. I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes. I hate the work of them that turn aside. It shall not cleave to me. A froward heart shall depart from me. I will not know a wicked person. Whoso privately slandereth his neighbor, him will I cut off. Him that hath a high look and a proud heart will I not suffer. Mine eyes shall be upon the faithful of the land, that they may dwell with me. He that walketh in a perfect way, he shall serve me. He that worketh deceit shall not dwell within my house. He that telleth lies shall not tarry in my sight. I will early destroy all the wicked of the land, that I may cut off all the wicked doers from the city of the Lord. Back over in the first part of the chapter, I like how he starts this chapter out in verse number 1. But verse number 2 is one of those verses that stood out to me. It says, I will behave myself wisely in a perfect way. Oh, when wilt thou come unto me? I will walk within my house with a perfect heart. I believe David writing here is telling us as Christians how we should walk. I believe David here very vividly is telling us and writing to us, telling us how we should act as Christians. But not just act, how we act outside of the house, but also how we act inside the house. I'm not telling you anything tonight that you don't already know or that you haven't already heard, but I believe here that David is just giving us an example of how he lived his life. But I like what he says. He says, I will behave myself in a perfect way. I will walk within my house with a perfect heart. Tonight I just want to remind you and just be an encouragement to you that we need to keep in mind that our testimony, the one thing that we work so hard to keep, the one thing that takes years for some of us to gain the respect of others, our testimony, the way we act in public, the way that we handle ourselves when we're around other people. David is just saying, just keep in mind that your testimony is the one thing that it can just take a matter of seconds to ruin. Our testimony, we can ruin our testimony with the snap of a finger. But yet, it could take us years to repair our testimony. And I believe that that's exactly what David in this chapter is telling us. That our testimony, we've worked so hard to attain it, and we can hurt it without ever even thinking of what we're doing. We can ruin it in seconds. But I believe David here is telling us that we need to behave ourselves wisely when we're in public. Can I say this? Somebody is always watching. Someone is always watching. You know, Brother Steve, it's good to have you tonight. And I know you can testify to this. There is people that know you as a pastor. There's people that know me as a pastor. I have no idea who they are. But let me tell you, they're watching. They're watching everything we do. They're watching how we live our lives. They're watching our testimony. And the same way with you. There's people, my father-in-law, you sing in a lot of different places. You don't know half the people, but people know you. People know each and every one of us. And it's how we act in public that can ruin our testimony. Guys, when take our wives shopping in the mall, and we're sitting on that bench, and here comes an attractive lady walking by. Do our eyes follow her down the mall, or where do our eyes go? Little things like that. You don't know that person sitting on the bench right next to you might be a member of another church and know you. Now your testimony is just ruined, just in an instant like that. I believe David here is telling us not only how we act in public, but I like what he goes on to say. He says, I behave myself wisely, but just not out in public. But notice what he says. He says, I will walk within my house with a perfect heart. I believe David here is just simply telling us that he walks the walk and he talks the talk. I truly believe that's what he's trying to tell us here. He's just simply telling us that I'm not a different person when I'm out in public than I am when I'm home. Too many Christians, too many people all across this country, all across this land, we act one way when we're out in public. When we go to a restaurant, we want someone to see us praying over our meal. We want someone to think that we're someone really spiritual, but then when we get home, we sit down and we don't even think about asking grace or saying a prayer over our food. David says, the same way I act here is the same way I act there. The things I do in public are the same things that I would do at home. And like I said, we have too many people all across this country. Hypocrites is a good word to use. We live one way in church, we live another way at home. My daughter likes to use that word a lot. She'll say, that person is a hypocrite. And a lot of times she'll use words because she hears other people using them. And we have to ask her, do you know what that word means? And most of the time she does, but that was one particular word that she kept using. And we sat down and we talked about what that is. And she was exactly right. She was talking about some of her friends at school, how they claim to be Christians, but yet their fruits, their lives, the way they act in public, the way they act around their other friends, that does not show the life of a Christian. But David here is telling us, he says, what I do at home is exactly what I do in public. And you've heard me say this before. I love my father-in-law to death. One of the greatest men that I've ever known. I had the privilege of knowing. But I'm going to pick on you again tonight. I do it all the time, but tonight I'm going to tell you again. That man, what he lives at home is what he lives when he's out in public. And he has no idea the testimony that he's had over the years, how much that testimony has meant to me in my life. You know, it can be very easy for me, and you know how it is. We see how our own family, we see how our brothers, we see how our sisters act because we've grown up with them. We know the lifestyle they live, and we can tell when they're not being sincere, when they're living a double life. But I can tell you right now, that's one man that doesn't live that. And I thank God for him every day. We get the chance to talk all the time about the things of Christ. And can I say, I've never heard a bad word spoken about that man. He's a great guy. He loves God, and he's just a great testimony to me and to my family. But here we find in verse number 3, David saying, I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes. I hate the work of them that turn aside. It shall not cleave to me. Again, I believe David here is telling us that because of his testimony, because of the way that he wants to live, here it is because of his standards that he set in his life. He says, I don't want to put any of those wicked things in front of my eyes. He said, because the minute that I put something there, I got to watch behind my back because there's somebody watching. There's somebody that wants to destroy me. There's somebody that wants to start spreading rumors about me. There's somebody watching. And David said, because of that one thing, that I will not set anything wicked before my eyes. He said, I have worked hard for many years to keep my testimony. that I have within myself by the grace of God. He said, because of that, he said, I don't want to put any wicked thing before my eyes. He goes on to say in that verse, and I think David, at the end of this verse, at the end of verse number 3, I believe, and I don't know, but my thought on this, I believe he may be even talking when he says, no wicked thing will I put before my eyes, it shall not cleave to me. I think he's kind of talking a little bit about addiction right there. Think about that a minute. He said, it shall not cleave to me. Those wicked things, they shall not cleave to me. And can I say this? That's how addiction gets started. We see something with our eyes. We take one little look and we think, oh, how good that looks. Temptation comes again. And I really believe that that's how it gets started. We put something before our eyes and we think it looks good. So one look, what happens? One look leads to another look. And then another look leads to another look. And then before we know it, we're addicted to those things that Christ said that we should not put in front of our eyes. Those sinful things, those sinful experiences. He said, it will not cleave to me. And I truly believe that he's possibly here talking about addiction. But it goes on in verse 4 to say, a froward heart shall depart from me. I will not know a wicked person. A froward heart, or can I say it this way, a difficult heart shall depart from me. I will not know a wicked person. I believe David once again here is telling us again that we need to watch our testimony. By the people that we hang around, our association, so to speak. I believe that. And I tell Abigail this all the time. That girl has a mind of her own. And sometimes that's for the good, but sometimes that's not for the good either. But I tell both of my girls all the time, and you can testify to this, if you hang around a wicked and evil person, you're going to end up a wicked and evil person. You hang around a spiritual person, you hang around somebody that loves God, somebody that wants to serve God, you'll be a person that wants to serve God and a person that loves God. But she comes home all the time, and you've heard that saying, guilty by association. That's a new phrase that I've had to teach Abigail over the last few years with dealings at school and things like that. And I have to tell her to watch her testimony, because her testimony at school can hurt her. We talk all the time. Why don't you invite your friends to church? And she'll look at me and I'll say, what's wrong? Are you not living the way that you should live at school? Or are you being a double person, a double-minded person, a hypocrite in your own words? But here's Abigail thinking. She came home one day, I don't know if it was last year or the year before last, but she says, she came home and says, well, I just got in trouble. And I said, what were you doing? Well, Dad, I wasn't doing anything. I just walked over to ask these kids a question, and all the next thing I know, I'm in the office because they've done something wrong. And I said, Abby, guilty by association. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time. God is trying to tell you, hey, you know what? The sins of the world, those people, that crowd over there, all it takes is just you to be over there standing where they're at. And all it takes is just for one kid to see you over there hanging around them. And guess what? Your reputation, your testimony is gone just like that. Just like that. She says, she came home there and she said that all the kids now, that she was, I don't remember the whole story, but the blunt of it was this: she was hanging around some of the bad kids that day, trying to over a boy or something. I don't remember the whole story, but she says now all the teachers think that since I hung around, was with those kids and got in trouble, now I'm one of those kids. I'm one of those bad kids. Abigail. Guilty by association. Your association, just your being around them. It may have only been for 5 seconds, but it doesn't matter. Our testimony can be ruined just like that in an instant. over something that someone sees us doing. And I keep trying to instill in her life each and every day, stay away from that crowd. You've got a testimony to your friends. You need to keep your testimony. Don't hang around the wrong people. Stay out of the world. Stay out of those things of the world. The Bible goes on, David saying here in verse number 5, it says, "Whoso privately slandereth his neighbor, him will I cut off." We know what that word slander means. Somebody that is privately telling lies against another person, against your neighbor. And once again, I believe that what he's talking about here, it could be your next door neighbor, but it could also be your church people, your church family. How many times has things like that happened in a church? We see it all the time. We come in and we have people say, "Oh, did you hear about so? I'm mad at him. Did you hear about so and so? Did you hear this? Did you hear that?" Gossip. We slander, and you know, and it's sad that it happens in our churches, but it does. It happens in our churches. Christian people, the ones that David said we're supposed to behave ourselves wisely. But yet we still come to church and we have a negative thing to say about somebody because we're upset at it. They did something to us or whatever the situation may be. We don't like this person, so we're going to spread a lie about this person. And before you know it, that lie gets around. And here's what God's saying. That person, the one that starts it, him, that's the one that will be cut off. But he goes on to say, "But he that hath a high look and a proud heart," that's the prideful people. That's the ones that hold their head up and they think that they're better than somebody else. They're more spiritual than you are. "Him will I not suffer, but mine eyes," I like this, "shall be upon the faithful of the land, that they may dwell with me. He that walketh in a perfect way." He, that's the one that's striving each and every day of their life. The one that's walking the walk and talking the talk. That's the one that I believe that Christ is talking about and David is writing about. He's the one that's going to serve me. He's the one. Not the one that's out in the world dealing with every other situation and causing havoc in the world, but the one that is truly dedicated to Christ. The one that is truly walking. The one that is striving on a daily basis. The one that's reading the Bible. The one that's praying. Those are the ones that are trying to walk in that perfect way. Those are the ones I believe that God is talking about when He says, "These are the ones that shall serve me." But he goes on, "He that worketh deceit shall not dwell within my house. He that telleth lies shall not tarry in my sight." I like how David mixes some things up here in this chapter. But he goes on, and lastly in this last verse, he says, "I will early destroy all the wicked of the land, that I may cut off all wicked doers from the city of the Lord." Back in verse number 7, he said, "He that worketh deceit shall not dwell within my house." He that worketh deceit. You know anybody like that? I do. Can I say it? They're all over the place. Can I say this? It's sad, but they're in our churches too. God here is saying, those people, the ones that's coming in, trying to be deceitful, trying to be sneaky about things that they're doing. David and God is just simply saying, those kind of people, them, those are the ones that won't dwell in my house. You know, we hear stories all the time about parents that have altercations with their kids, and before you know it, they're out on the streets. But you know, I truly believe that there's a reason behind that. You know, too many times we see kids get mixed up in the wrong crowd, and it's a sad thing. But too many times, that's what happens to our kids. They come home. They want to be deceitful. They want to lie about things. But why do they do it? Because that's their association. That's the kind of lifestyle that they've chosen. But David said, those are the ones that work at deceit. They shall not dwell in my house. He that telleth lies shall not tarry in my sight. We know that the Bible tells us what happens to liars. It's very clear. I don't know about you, but there's nothing I hate worse than someone lying to me. I'd rather you shoot me in the foot than lie to me. You say, have you ever told a lie? Yes, I have. I have. It doesn't matter how old I was or how young I was. But you know, I realized through some experiences that, and you know what they say, the truth will set you free. All that guilt, I don't know about you, but the times in my life when I've told something that wasn't true, told a lie, and that guilt just ate me up until I couldn't live with myself. But he says, I will early destroy all the wicked from the land, that I may cut off all the wicked doers from the city of the Lord. Tonight I just wanted to give you that thought tonight about our testimonies. I like how David said that. He said, I will behave myself wisely. I will behave myself wisely in a perfect way. And I want to challenge you tonight. And I want to encourage you tonight. And I want to remind you tonight that your testimony is probably the most valuable thing other than your salvation that you have in this world. You can lose it like that, but it'll take you years to get it back, to gain respect back from those people that seen you ruin your testimony. Church after church, people after people in churches have ruined their testimony. And I just want to be an encouragement to you tonight. Just remember, when you're out in public, don't be different than you are when you're at home. You're not fooling anybody. Oh, you may fool them for a while. But you know the old saying, you're not fooling God. Just remember your testimony tonight. Lord, we thank you for this simple truth in this book of Psalms tonight. Lord, we love you tonight. We thank you for the example that David showed us tonight. Lord, I pray that you would just, Lord, help us to remember that as we're out in the world, Lord, that somebody is watching. Lord, it could not only just affect our lives, but it could affect the lives of our family, the lives of our children. Just one thing. So we're asking you tonight, God, that you would just take this passage of Scripture and help us and remind us, Lord, that there are folks that are out there that are seeking to destroy us. And may we ever remember, Lord, our testimony. Lord, when things like that come our way, may we remember, Lord, our testimony. We love you tonight. We thank you for each and every one that's come out. We thank you for, Lord, what you've done today. We pray for the upcoming youth rally. Lord, I pray that, Lord, that you would just, Lord, help teenagers to come. Lord, we just want to be a blessing. We want to be a help to the teens in this community and the teens in this area. We love you tonight. We thank you for these things. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate you being here. You're dismissed. Pray that you'll be here Wednesday night. We're studying Proverbs. I think we're on chapter 4 this week. And be here Wednesday for that. And don't forget, Jeff.